So welcome at NAB 2019, and I'm going to have a small talk with Warren Eagles, and we are going to talk about color correction and post-production. RedShark's NAB coverage is brought to you by NewTek, G Technology, Blackmagic Design, and Adobe. So Warren, for the people who don't know you, tell us, just give it a little intro probably.
I'm a colour grader. I live in Australia, been there 20 years, originally from London. I grade everything and anything from features down, YouTube, everything in the middle, but I've also got a training company, and we run around the world training colourists. So, and in between I come and NAB.
What is one of the trends that you see in colour grading?
Probably the biggest thing is HDR. For the colorist. For years we've sat down on a monitor, we've made the pictures look good, and it's gone off. Now we're talking more about for HDR with color managed workflows. We're looking at color managed from the cameras we're actually using, where we decided to put those in the right color space, which we need to really for an IMF HDR. So that's what colorists are looking to do. That's the exciting thing.
Now, I would argue that HDR still feels a bit for the high end of the market, but actually there have been some developments that will actually get it to a wider range of production. So.
Totally. I mean, if you go in any store now, you struggle to probably buy a normal SDR telly. So no standard dynamic range. They're all HDR capable. They're all, some of them Dolby Vision. Some of them HDR 10 plus. So it's starting to happen as these streaming providers, your Netflix, Amazon type, are starting to say we need an HDR deliverable. Then it's for us in post to start thinking, well, we really got to start thinking about how we're going to do this and deliver this. And the colorist comes into that. No, we're not laterally making all those deliverables. We've got to bear this in mind. And a different way of grading HDR is quite different.
Yeah, because does it change your eye? Do you have to train your eye differently?
Well, it's interesting. People are quite sort of worried about the higher dynamic range, more nits, bright is that. But it was put to me by Kevin Shaw, who's my partner in the training company, that because the nit value is changing quite a lot, your eye is doing more work than it was in standard dynamic range. And when your eye does more, it's getting trained a bit more. So it's actually moving up and down, which is not so bad. Occasionally, yes, you will come from a very dark to a bright scene. That takes a bit getting used to, but I don't think it's probably as bad as what people think.
And just one more question about this HDR, because it really interests me, is do you start off with the HDR grade and then make the SDR grade?
It's a very good point, and it's a big talking point.
Yes.
Yes, for Dolby Vision, you can only do it that way. Netflix deliverable, and what they say, they want Dolby Vision, so that start with the HDR, get that looking right. The SDR is a metadata trim pass, which is automatic, but then you can manually go in and trim. Some people, that's fine. Some people might look at that and say, not as good as if I just did the SD pass. Now, that will change. There'll probably be more tools put in there, and slowly we won't need that SDR trim pass. Everything will be HDR, but it's in a transitional phase. So there's a little bit of back and forth, which is the best way to go there. But Dolby Vision, that's the only way.
And do you think that it changes the way you grade on a creative level? So are you now seeing other trends in the way you use color, for example?
Yeah. Just HDR 2020, higher nit values in certain colors is a big difference. People tend to think HDR is just about the brightness and how bright it's going to be. It's also about better blacks, but it's about getting a much better orange or a yellow and better definition in those colors, and skies is where we're thinking. And I think don't think pushing it too much. And some HDR can be very subtle. It's not a stereoscopic axe coming through the screen. You can do it much subtler, which is what I prefer.
And then on the acquisition side, things need to change there as well, I guess.
Yes. there's some schools have thought, well, we've shot HDR for years, film was HDR, and why do we have to do anything different? The camera's capturing all the dynamic range. It's not true. I think the DP that embraces it and starts to think how they can shoot slightly different for HDR and take advantage of what they can do, they're the ones that are going to embrace it and are going to go further. And that's where we can then work with them, push certain little areas, and that's where the fun comes in. But I definitely think it's across everything.
Yeah. And this has been a trend that's been happening over probably at least the last 10 years. It's like the cost of color grading has obviously gone down dramatically.
Yes.
Do you see any new trends that tap into that kind of development as well? Or is that kind of, are we at the point that it's already as low cost as it can be?
It's free. Can't get any lower.
Yeah.
I think probably. I mean, there's different prices, and obviously you've got different color corrections, different levels, some software only. So I think it probably is where it is. They keep developing tools. I've been to see Blackmagic, I've been to see Filmlight. They're adding more tools. That obviously we talk about HDR, we're talking about those sort of hero players in that space, along with your digital visions as well. So it's interesting, but they seem to be keeping up with everything, and every release they're putting more things in. So for the colorist, it's becoming easier, but it is about education. And I would say to any colorist, if there's a show on the horizon and it's HDR, you've got to get in there early and try and learn as much as you can, because you can't just have it land on Monday morning and go, okay, we're doing this HDR, we paid the monitor, let's go. It doesn't work like that. And something I've heard a lot here this week is, by the time you graded your 4th HDR job, you wish you could go back and grade the other 3. And I've heard that from a few people. And it's just like anything, you learn while you do it, but get prepared.
Yeah. Last question. What are you looking for at the show floor yourself?
Very interesting seeing the new Asus monitor. They've got like a quantum dot monitor, which is capable of 1,000 nits. I think it's the 32. That's interesting because people are looking for a cheaper solution. So that's interesting. I love the Frame IO integration. I love the Flanders 1000 nit. The 1131K11, really good. They're really good guys at Flanders, so we do a lot of stuff with them. I actually record my podcast with these guys, Zoom. I'm going to have to go and talk to them. Zoom, I actually got my podcast called the Colour Tour Podcast. It's where I talk in the Colorist Bay, and then we go out to the pub and we have beers and we chat about where they live. No Skype. Proper location with the colorist. And the only trouble is I'm normally the one that gets more drunk than them. So by the end I'm
Okay, well, have a nice show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thanks, RedShark.